Hey everyone, I want to talk a little bit about the concept of movement optimism. This is something that's been springing up a lot in the last 5 to 10 years, maybe longer. I could be wrong on the history of that, but basically it's a response to the overwhelming and pervasive thought that a lot of movements are bad. The idea that your knees wear out over time, the idea that your back wears out. When you get older, you're going to have to get a knee replacement, you're going to have to get a hip replacement. The idea that movement destroys our bodies. And so, as evidence has accumulated, as we've learned more about the human body and kind of how we respond to load and respond to exercise, we've kind of realized that this is not how things actually work. Our bodies respond to appropriate amounts of load by getting stronger. So obviously, if you've never squatted before, you can't go do 10,000 squats in one day and be like, okay, my knees are going to get stronger. That's going to probably be too much load, right? But if we progress slowly over time, your knees get stronger. Cartilage is thicker in elite Olympic weightlifters compared to people who don't lift at all. Low back intervertebral disc height and health is better in cyclists, endurance cyclists, who are hunched over in a rounded position for hours at a time compared to people who don't cycle. So what this is showing is that these bodies have adapted to the load they're put under. And when people come in and say that, hey, your knee is going to be destroyed if you squat this way, your back is going to be destroyed if you round it forward, that is movement pessimism, and it's just not how the body works. It also is a negative all on its own right, beyond just the idea that it might not be terrible if that was protecting people from actual injury, right? Like if we could squat with our knees back behind our feet, if we didn't have to round our backs, then like why would we anyway, right? If there is a chance that we could damage something, then maybe we shouldn't take that chance. But the problem is this idea of kinesiophobia, fear of movement, is very prevalent in people with chronic pain and in frail people. So there's a lot of research on this idea of kinesiophobia, and it's basically most prevalent in the people that are in the most pain. So in people that are the weakest as well. And so what happens is when people become afraid of movement, when they are put under this movement pessimism guise and they're told don't do these things, they become afraid of those things, and then they're less likely to do them, and the body gets weaker in those positions over time. And this kinesiophobia then it leads to people getting weaker and weaker and weaker. The whole body structurally becomes weaker, and they are more likely to experience pain and injury at that point, just purely due to that fear of movement. Even without actual structural damage, being afraid of a movement is associated with pain with that movement. Your brain is more likely to perceive that movement as a threat, and it's more likely that you're going to have pain with it. So in response to that, there's this movement, or there's a thing called movement optimism, basically, where we understand that the body adapts to load. The body gets stronger with appropriate exercise prescription, with appropriate load prescription, and things don't just wear out over time for no reason. So try and approach things like that in your life with the idea of movement optimism. Like, hey, it's okay if I bend over to tie my shoes. It's okay if my back rounded a little on that deadlift, so long as I worked up to it over time, that kind of thing. And you might just experience less pain solely because of that optimistic approach.